All right. So I've started the record. I'll go back to my browser. Yes. On my browser, what I would like to do is I would like to create a project, but this time tell me, am I creating a regular Spring project or am I creating a Spring Boot application? It is a Spring Boot application which I want to create. It's not a regular Spring project which I want to create. So I will select the language as Java, the project as a Maven project, right? And then I will select Spring 3.2.2. Name of the application, I will maybe write it as com.tap and artifact, maybe the name of this application, I'm going to call this as a book app, which means this is going to manage the details about a book. It is going to manage the details about a book. So I'll call it as book app. And package name, I will keep it as com.tap. Package name, I will keep it as com.tap. Then packaging is jar packaging. I will use Java 17. Then there are some dependencies which I will need. If you ask me what are the dependencies, since it is going to be a web-based application, I will need Spring Web dependency. I will need Spring Web dependency. So I will select Spring Web. Apart from this Spring Web, what I would also need is, I would use something called as dev tools, development tools. Sir, what exactly is this dev tools, sir? What is the use of development tools? See, sometimes I will be changing some code in my application. So if you remember the servlet or your Spring applications, as soon as I make the changes, I had to stop the server and restart the server. I had to stop the server and restart the server. So this is because, whatever the application that I was having, that particular application was not having a live restart or live reload. So in order to solve that problem, maybe, I will ask my Spring to have a live reload option. So that is the reason I'm using it. You can see it says, what is the use of Spring DevTools? So Spring DevTools is used to provide faster application restarts, live reload option is there, and configuration is enhanced to development experience. So it is going to make our experience of application development simpler. I hope you are able to understand this. Yes, sir. I hope it is clear. So once I have added these two dependencies, tell me, am I going to interact with the database? Yes, sir. I want to have a book database where I'm going to perform operations on the book database, sir. I want to interact with the database, sir. Yes, sir. Correct. So to use the database, what I will do is I will include the MySQL dependency. So you can see DevTools I will include. Then MySQL driver I will include. So along with your MySQL driver, along with the MySQL driver, what I will also do is I will say, boss, I'm going to make use of Java persistent objects. So Spring data JPA, Java persistent object I'm going to use. So I will say it here as Spring data JPA I want to use. And I will select this. So these are the dependencies that I am going to include in my application. And then I'm going to say here as generate or create application. So as soon as I say it as generate or create, it is going to download one Java file in a zip format. I will extract all of it into book app I will say replace the files in destination. So it has gone somewhere. Maybe I'll re-extract again. Book app one, I will say, because I guess there was a previous project with the name. So you can see this is the application book app, and inside this I have some code. So I will now go to my Eclipse. I will now go to my Eclipse, and in my Eclipse I'll go to the file system file, and here I'll say open project from file system. So directory I want to select, and the directory I'll go to downloads, book app one, book app I will select, and I'm selecting this folder. You can see book app is the project. Then I'm going to tell here as finish. So one thing you will have to understand is as soon as you download this project, you can see if your Spring Suite 4 is present, then this project is going to display it as a Spring Boot project with DevTools. Spring Boot project with DevTools. Right now, what I will do is I'll right click, I will say it as a Maven update project, which means, if there are any dependencies, I'm saying, please go download the dependencies and update the project. The project has got updated. So I hope this is clear. Sir, yes, sir. Now the project is updated. What next? So tell me, what is the next thing that I want to do? Is I now want to write some code inside my application to interact with the database. So tell me, anybody who had attended yesterday's session, if you remember, there I told I will be having controllers, correct? I told I will be having controllers. So I will create one package, which I call it as com.tab.controller package. I hope you are able to understand this, yes or no? I am telling here I have one package which is called as com.tab.controller. So in the same way, tell me, what did I also say? I will have an entity. So right click, tell it as new, a package, which is com.tab.entity, I will say, entity. Okay, sir, I have com.tab.entity. What next, sir? Yes, what next will I have? See, the next thing that you are going to have is you have to interact with the database. So you would need a service. So I will say com.tab.service is there. In the same way, sir, since I will have to perform database interactions, tell me, am I going to use Hibernate for database interactions? Will I be using the Hibernate classes for database interactions? All those who attended yesterday. What will I use? Sir, no, sir, I will not be using Hibernate interactions. Rather, I will be using a repository class, sir. Yes or no? Gudu, you remember? I told we will be using repository classes. So I will have a repository created here. So inside com.tab, I'm going to create a new package. And the name of the package, I'm going to call it as com.tab.repo or repository. You can create whatever you want. I will write it as com.tab.repo. Is this much clear? Is this much clear till here? Any confusion till here? Sir, okay, sir. What will happen after this? Yes, after this, what has to happen? First and the foremost thing, I will go to the database and I will create a database for a book. I'll create a database for a book, and then we will have a look at it. So for now, what I will do is I will go into my database first. Let me open MySQL command line client. So let me just share MySQL command line client. So please confirm if you can see MySQL command line client. I'm entering the password as root. I hope you are able to see this. Any confusion, any problem with having to see this? I hope there is no problem. Yes. So what I'll now do here is I'll first create a database. So I will say create a database, which I'll call it as maybe Spring Boot. So I will create it. It says cannot create database. Spring Boot database exists is what it says. So I'll say delete database Spring Boot. So how do I drop a database? Is it by saying drop database Spring Boot? Yes. So now I will say create a database Spring Boot. Then I'll say use Spring Boot. Okay, sir. Now we have changed our database to Spring Boot, sir. Here I want to create a table. Okay, what table is it? It is a table for a book app. So I will say create a table called as a book, and it is going to have ID, which is maybe I will write it as a BID, which is an integer, and also I am going to say this is an integer primary key, and also I will say it has to auto increment. INCREMENT. So BID integer primary key auto increment. And along with this, I'm also going to say I will have a book name. So I will write it as book underscore name, which is maybe a varchar of 20. And then I will have book author, which is again a varchar of 20 is what I will create. And I hope the syntax is correct. Create the table book, BID integer primary key auto increment, book name varchar of 20, book author varchar of 20. If I hit enter, so it says the table called as book is created. So now I will say describe the book table, and you can see this is my book table which I have. This is my book table that I have. Sir, yes, sir. Now I have the book table correct, sir. How will I connect to the database, sir? Or how am I going to say my Java program has to interact with this table only, sir? For this, what I will have? I will have something called as an entity class. So tell me what goes into your entity class. Let me just understand here. So entity class, I will right click. I'll tell it as a new class. And the name of the class, I will write it as book entity. The name of the class, I'm going to write it here as book entity. What exactly will go into this book entity class? If you ask me, first and foremost thing, I will say first, this is an entity class. Hello, hello, Hemant.
Last week పోదామన్నా maybe.
Hemant, can you put yourself on mute? Right? So I have an entity class, and now I'm going to say, boss, this book entity is representing a table in the database, and the table name is book table. So I will say Control Shift O Jakarta persistence dot table. This is where I'm going to import it from. Sir, okay, sir. Now you have imported it. Tell me, what are the details that I have inside the book table? I have a BID, B name, and also B author. See, it's up to you if you want to write it as book ID, book name, and book author, but I have written it as BID, B name, and B author. But here you may have a thought, sir, in the database it is book underscore name, book underscore author. That we will manage, not a problem. So you can see integer type BID and string type book name, and also string type book author or the B author is what I have. Now, what I'll do is I'll declare all of these as private variables. So you can see I'm going to declare them as private variables. So tell me, once I have private variables in my class, how will I access them? In order to access them, I will have getters. So I will only write getters here, select the getters, then I will tell it here as a finish. Okay, getters is included. The next thing is I will need a constructor. Constructor can be parameterized and also zero parameterized. So first I will select all and I will generate a parameterized constructor. So you can see this is my parameterized constructor. Then I will ask for a zero parameter constructor also. Constructor using the fields deselect all, then generate, which means a zero parameter book entity constructor I have got, and then maybe I will also have the toString method. So you can see, yes, the toString method. I've also got the toString method. All right, sir. Now, whatever the details I want in my book entity, I have entered. But tell me, have I mapped my variables to the columns in the database? No, sir, we haven't mapped the variables to the columns in the database. Now, I will do it by saying, boss, BID is an ID, identity variable imported from Jakarta persistence. So once you have got this, I will say this is going to represent a column in the database with a name as BID. So I will import this. What else? Tell me, look at my variable called as a BID. It is integer primary key and also it is auto increment. So ID, if I write it, indicates it is a primary key. Now I will have to tell it as an auto increment. So how do I tell it? I will say at the rate generation generated value, and inside this I will say strategy is equals to generation generation type dot type dot auto. So now you can see I will import everything, and which means writing this line is going to make it as an auto generated value. Okay, sir. BID is over. What next? Next thing is B name. B name is going to represent one column in the table with the name of the column as book underscore name. Yes. Is this the name of the column? Have a look at it. Book name, book underscore name. Yes. So I will just write it here like this. In the same way, I will have at the rate column name is equals to book underscore author. So one thing, tell me, when I'm actually creating an object of the book, am I going to pass the book ID? Sir, ID we need not pass, sir. Why shall I not pass ID? Because ID is an auto-generated value. So what I will do is in this constructor also I will remove away BID. In this constructor also I have removed away BID. Okay, sir. Now you have created this class called as the entity class, fine. But without execution, without writing anything, I just have one main method already. I just want to execute this main method and see what will happen. I'm not calling the book entity class or whatever. I'm simply saying run as, and this time when you're running, you will not run it as a normal Java application. Rather, you will run it as a Spring Boot app. What you're going to do, you will run it as a Spring Boot app. So I will run it, and as soon as I run it, you will be able to see one banner created. So you can see a banner is created and it says application failed to start. What is the reason for the application to fail to start? To display the condition evaluation report, rerun your application with debug enabled, failed to configure data source. So what it is saying is, boss, whatever database you had to configure, you have not configured. If you want to embed database H to SQL Derby, please put it in the class path. It is what is saying. If you have database settings to be loaded from a particular profile, you may need to activate it. That's okay. That's okay. I'm not interested in that. But one thing I'm interested in, can you see that there is one banner that is got created here called as a Spring. So now my question is, sir, every time should I use the same banner called a Spring banner, sir? Maybe I am creating a book app application, sir. I want to use it as a book app, sir. Yes, you can use it as book app. So what do I need to do? Yes, you can go to the browser. So let me just share my browser here. So I'm showing you my browser. What I will do is I'll go to browser here. I'm going to say, I will say here as a Spring Boot banner generator. So I'm going to say Spring Boot banner generator. So as soon as I say Spring Boot banner generated, there are so many options available on the internet. So I will go to one option. So you can see it is displaying the name as welcome. No, I don't want welcome. I want to write it here as book app. And you can see there are so many options that it will show. Maybe let me just say one row. So this is how it says book app. No, sir, 3D. This is how it shows. Sir, 3D diagonal. This is how it shows. So its duty is to generate it. It's very basic, in your pattern programming, how you would have created it. In the same way, it is creating it here also. So you can see book app in this way also it is generating. So it is up to you how you want to use it. I'll see whichever is simpler, whichever is a little readable, I will use. So maybe I'll just use one of the formats. I guess okay, this format looks simple. Okay, sir, what will you do with it? What will I do with it is I will simply copy this. I will simply copy this. Okay, sir, you have copied it. What next? The next thing is I'll go to my application. So I will stop my server. So I guess the server has not started. So I'll close it. Apart from closing it, what makes the next thing is, can you see here? I have SRC main resources folder. So inside this SRC main resources folder, what I will do is I'll right click, I'll tell it as a new, a text document I need. So I'll say new file, and the name of the file I will call it as banner.txt. I'll call it as banner.txt, and inside this banner.txt, I will create this, I'll paste this called as book app, and maybe I'll say book app perform all CRUD operations. So in this way, I would write by saying book app perform all CRUD operations. Then I'll just close this, and again the same thing, right click, run as a Spring Boot app. This time I'm not worried about what error I'm going to get. Only thing that I want you to understand and have a look at it here is the banner has now changed. The banner has now changed. I hope you are able to understand this, everybody. Yes. Sir, okay, sir. Now the banner has changed. What next, sir? Yes. The next thing is, yes, anyways, I have written the entity class. So once I have written the entity class, the next thing that I would do is I would declare a controller. So this time, what type of controller I'm using? It is not a Spring controller. Rather, the controller is a REST API Spring Boot controller. So I'll right click on my controller package. I'll tell it as a new class. And the name of the class, I will write it as book controller. I'll write it as book controller. And inside this book controller, I will say, boss, this is a REST API controller. So I will write it as REST, REST controller. So you can see I have written it as a REST controller, or I'm writing it as RESTful API controller. Sir, once you have written it as a REST controller, what next, sir? See, the next thing that I need is I need a service, I need a repository. So I will go back to my project. I will write here inside the service, or maybe first I'll create a repository by saying the new repository called as book repository, REPO. So I will write here as book repository. Ah, sir, what is this book repository going to do? Your book repository will extend. Sorry, one thing is I'll not be creating a class of book repository. I'll create an interface. I'll create an interface. So you can see a new interface called as book repository. So tell me, can one interface implement another interface? What is meant by implementation? Implementation is nothing but promising the interface, saying that I am going to give the body for the unimplemented methods. But tell me, can one interface give a body for another interface? No, sir. So that is the reason what I will do is I'll say one interface, extend another interface. What interface is it going to extend? If you ask me, it is going to extend an interface called as the Crud repository interface. I will say it as okay. And while I'm adding it, I'll have boss, I'm going to deal with objects called as the book objects, and I will be passing integer data. I will be passing integer data. So I have written here as finish. I'll click on finish. So now you will see I will have public interface book repo extends CRUD repository, a book entity class. What is the name of the entity class? Book entity. So I will write it as book entity. Now I will have to import the book entity. I'll have to import the book entity. I hope you're able to understand this, Gudu. Is it
Yes, sir. Yes.
right? Okay, sir. Now I have the CRUD repository. Sir, should I be writing any methods inside this? Tell me, what did I say? Sorry? What should I be saying inside the CRUD repository? I told you yesterday, if you remember, your CRUD repository is already an repository with all the required methods. I do not have to write anything more. All I'll have to do is as and when I need it, I can use it. As and when I need it, I will use it. I hope you're able to understand this.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Sir, what will I do now, sir? I have the Crud repository. So there should be one person who is going to interact with the Crud repository. And that person who is going to interact with the, sorry, book repository. And that person is only my service. So you can see I have a REST controller. Now I'm going to create a book service. I'm going to create a book service. So I'll right click on my service. I'll tell it as a new. I'll tell it as a new class, which I will call it as a book service. I hope you're able to understand this. Okay, sir. Book service is now created. What next? So whatever this book service I have, I am going to say maybe wherever I need the book service, I want my Spring Boot to generate the book service object. If you remember, in Spring also we were doing the same thing. Whenever I want Spring object, whenever I want the object, I was asking my Spring container to give me an object. But here, the container is a little different. It is not a Spring container, it is a Spring Boot container. So one advantage that we have is we need not declare beans. We need not tell, this is the bean, this is the bean that I want. If I need not write class path XML application context dot get bean. All this is not needed for me. I can simply say, boss, book service, wherever I want you to inject it by saying at the rate component. I'm going to write here as book service is a component. Now tell me, in the book controller, will you agree I need the book service? In book controller, I need the book service. Will you agree with me? Since I need book service, here in the book controller, I will declare one variable as book service type BS. So I will import book service. I hope you're able to understand this. Sir, yes, sir. I have written book service BS, but am I going to create an object of book service, sir? No, I am not going to create an object of book service. Then what is that I'm going to do? I am asking my Spring Boot controller, my Spring Boot to give me the object. I want it to auto inject the object. So I will write here as at the rate auto wired. I'll import at the rate auto wired. Are you able to understand this? Hello?
Yes, sir. Got it till here.
Yes. Sir, okay, sir. Now, book service, what will book service do, sir? Tell me, what should your book service do? Your book service should be interacting with book repository. Your book service is going to interact with book repository. So I will go to my book repository, and book repository, I will write it as at the rate component. I hope you're able to understand this. Now, this book repository, what I will do is try to inject book repository into my book service by saying book repo type BR is what I will declare. I will import book repo, and here I'm now going to write at the rate auto wild, and now I'm going to import auto wild. Is this clear, Gudu?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Yes. So after writing this much, what I want to do is maybe I'm assuming that there is some data in the database. I want to fetch the data from the database. So tell me, if I have to fetch the data from the database, the first and the foremost thing is the request will come to my controller. The request will come to my controller. I hope you're able to understand this. Sir, what type of request will I get, sir? See, the request that you will be getting is a get request, which means the user is going to say, can you get me the data? So it is called as get request. So whenever we have a get request, I will have a get mapping. Whenever there is get request, I will have get mapping. So I will say at the rate get mapping of maybe, sir, how will the request come, sir? The request will come in the form of books. So I'm saying here as get mapping of books. I hope you're able to understand this. Once I have a get mapping of books, maybe one method I will call, which is public, uh, as of now, I will say public void uh, get books method. Maybe I will write it as get all books method. I hope you're able to understand this now. So I'll have to import the get mapping. I have imported the get mapping. All right, sir, I have the public void get books method. So what will this get books method do? Maybe this get books method has to call one method inside the book service. Has to call one method inside the book service. Sir, what is this method inside the get book service going to do? Maybe I will write here inside the book service. I will have one method as public void get all books method. Now, what will this get all books method do if you ask me? I am going to return one book. Or am I going to return one book or a list of books? I will be returning a list of books. So for that, I will say br dot find all method. I have a method called as find all method. What is it? It is a book repository which I have. Using the book repository, I'm calling the find all method. So tell me, what is this find all method going to do? Is it is going to give me an iterable book entity. It is going to give me an iterable book entity. So now what I will do is I will say, boss, whatever data I'm going to get, it is going to be a list of books. Will you agree with me? So I will write it as a list type list. And now what I will do is this list is going to consist of book is what I will write here by saying ENTITY book entity. So I'll import both list and also book entity. Now I will have to add cast to list. So once I have this list of books, what I will do is I will say return the list. I'm not going to do anything. I'll simply say return the list. So I'll hover, I'll say change return type of the method to list of books. You can just have a look at it. Okay, sir. Now this get all books method I'm supposed to call. What I will do is I'll go to my book controller. In the book controller, I will say bs dot get all books. Tell me what will this get all books method give me? It is going to give me a list of books. I will simply say it as return and I will change the return type of the method to list of books. Good, is it clear till here?
Yes, sir, clear.
Yes. So what is the next thing that I want to do? Is the next thing is, first of all, data has to be there inside my books. Yes or no? In the table. So I will say insert into book, book having book underscore name, comma, book underscore author. And I will write the values as maybe the book name is uh, complete Java, and the name of the author is James Gosling. Right? So is the syntax right? Okay, so one row is affected is what it says. Now, one more data I will insert, maybe C master class by Dennis Ritchie. I'll hit enter. So there are two details that I have. So I will show it to you here. Select star from student. Sorry, select star from book, not student. And you can see one complete Java James Gosling to C masterclass Dennis Ritchie. So this is the data that I have. Correct. Now, this data I have to fetch it from the database using my Spring Boot app. But tell me, anywhere have I written the code to connect to the database?
No.
So that code will get into your application.properties file in your resources. In your SRC main resources, you have something called as application.properties. So inside this application.properties, I will be writing the code in order to in order to connect to the database. So probably I'll go on to the internet. I'll write here as application properties Spring Boot for MySQL. So I'll just see here. You can get them online. So you can see this is something that I have. So I'll just copy it from here. I'll just paste it here. So it is Spring JPA Hibernate.dll auto I have written. Then data source URL. What is the URL? It is JDBC colon MySQL colon double slash localhost colon 3306 slash. What is the name of the database that I had? The name of the database was Spring Boot. So I will write here as Spring Boot. What is the username? Username is root. Password is also root. And what is the name of the class? Driver class. It is com.mysql.cj.jdbc.driver. Because I'm using MySQL 8, I'll be using CJ. If you're using MySQL 5, you can remove this CJ. Then show JPA SQL. I've written it here as true. I hope you're able to understand this. Good till here, is it clear?
Yes, sir. It's clear.
Now can I run my Spring Boot app? So I'll right click. I'll tell it as run as a Spring Boot app. So you can see it will start running. And insert into books equal values 1. Hibernate to enable JTA platform integration. So start completed. So you can see here, it says, boss, your application is started and it is available at a port number 8080, correct? Tomcat started on port 8080 is what it says. Now I want to fetch the data. I want to fetch the data. So tell me, how will I fetch the data? I will have to write this URL called as /books. So if I write /books, I will be able to fetch all the books. But where should I write this /books? Should I
On
go to my browser and write? So you can see here, I'll say www dot local, sorry, http colon double slash localhost colon 8080 slash books. So if I write it here, you can see I have got my data. Are you able to understand this? But the question is, sir, in the industry, is this how I will be getting the data, sir? See, you can get the data here on the browser, but in the industry, this is not how we will get the data. In order to get the data, I will use something called as Postman. There is an app application software called as Postman, which I will be using. So let me just share my Postman screen now. So I hope you are able to see the screen of a Postman. So here, probably this is how it would discard changes. So this is how it would look for the first time when you open it. So forget about what I have written here in my past. So here, what I will do is I will say, boss, I need to send a new request. So I will open a new window. Now it will ask me, what is the type of request? Is it a get request, post request, put request, patch, delete, head, or options? What is the type of request that you want to send? I want to get the data. So I will say it is a get request I will send. And it will ask me the URL. I will say the URL is http colon double slash localhost colon 8080 slash books. Correct? Is it right?
Yes, sir.
Now I will send it as a send. Before I send it, yes, send and download. So I'll say it as send a request and get the data. So now I have got the data. So when you're getting the data, you can see I have a BID1, B name complete Java, B author James Goslin, BID2, B name C masterclass, B author Dennis Ritchie. In this way, I've got the data. But one advantage that I have here, if I'm using this Postman, is I can fetch the data either in JSON, or if I want, I can fetch the data in XML, or if I want, I can fetch the data in HTML. So what was displayed to us on the browser was HTML direct displayed data. I can get it as a text file, or I can get it as an auto file. It is auto. Auto is nothing, but basically it will get it into JSON, because the data that my Postman sends is JSON data. I hope you are able to understand this good. So it also says, what is the raw type? What is the preview? This is the preview of data, visualize it. So set up the visualizer for request. In case if you have any front-end visualizer, you can set it up to show how the data would be displayed. So now this is a way in which I am going to write a Spring Boot code in order to fetch the data. In the same way, I can perform other CRUD operations, creating the data, then fetching the data based on the ID, updating the data, deleting the data. I can write Spring Boot CRUD operations for each of them. But tell me now, whatever the code that I have written here, forget about what is there. It is very simple. I've simply told bs dot get all books. In the book service, I have simply told br dot find all. In the book repo, there is nothing I have written. So tell me, compared to your Hibernate, don't you feel now my work has become even more simpler, where I don't even have to write even a single line related to the database interactions?
Yes, sir.
There is already a method. There is already a method. Somebody has already written it. All I will be doing is call that method. I will get the data. Now you may have a question, sir. Here it is book, sir. I'm able to get it. What if there is a student object, student data? Will I be get it? Yes, your find all method will get irrespective of whatever data it is. If it will get the student data. If it is maybe say course table, it will get course data. If it is employee table, it will get employee data. I hope you are able to understand this. So Gudu, I guess in your project, in the recent Sunbase project, you had used JSON data you were trying to show it on your database, sorry, on your front end.
Yes, sir.
So
I
how
did
do
that.
you, store the data and show it on the front end? You use HTML, CSS is what I believe. You did not use any frameworks, right?
Yes, sir. Basically, I just create another class and
Correct.
converted into the uh,
Correct. So
like a
now that
single
you have
and
your data in JSON, can you try to write some front end which is going to display the data on the browser? What I'm trying to tell you is, don't you feel now you can think in this perspective also, because on your browser, anyways, you have the JSON data. You can see here, this is a JSON format. I hope you're able to understand. I hope you're able to think in this perspective.
yes, sir. So for that, I have to fetch the data in the servlet or Java code and then convert into that by the help of what we call in like JSON array, convert into first in JSON array and then fetch the data in JSON object.
I understood. I understood. So you can think about how you can do it, because see, basically in the front end, we will use either React or Angular. So that is the reason I just want you to try on this perspective. But anyways, whatever I have taught till here, is it clear?
Yes, sir. Clear.
So in the other next session, what I'll do is the rest of the CRUD operation, that is fetching based on a particular ID, editing the data, deleting the data, updating the data, we will perform. Right? But for today, what I want you to do is I want you to rewatch this video, create a book table, try to fetch all the data from the book table. In the same way, create one more table called a student, try to fetch details from the student. See, in this way, what will happen is your knowledge about setting up the Spring Boot project will be clear. So first
Yes, sir.
and foremost thing, what I want you to do is I want you to have a understanding about how a Spring Boot project is set up, right?
Yes, sir.
All right. So tomorrow we will meet back and then I'll complete the CRUD operations, and probably tomorrow will be the last session. So after that, every week I'll try connecting with you to understand if you're creating projects. I want you to work on these advanced concepts by creating projects on your own, which we will be doing it on weekly basis. But tomorrow is going to be like an official conclusion for your spring session.
Okay, sir. Sir, in Spring Boot, that there are these only these 3 or 5 tags or any another net annotation also.
See, annotations I'll show you, because tomorrow when I say update, there is something called as a post mapping, put mapping, delete mapping. In this way, I'll have different mappings.
Okay.
This is basically CRUD operations with respect to Spring Boot, and for a fresher level, this is more than sufficient for you to attend interviews.
Yes, sir. Because today I attended an interview and they asked question that there is some data in JSON file you have to put in the by the help of API.
Sorry,
So it was
one second. I'll pause the recording.